All right, all right, all right. Let's see. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, 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 welcome. I am pulling up the kind guests here, their payment links, because we have to drop some coins in this today. My name is Dee Dee Delgado. I'm your hostess with the most sex. And I am, first of all, that literally just came out 3 days ago. Okay, so anyways, I'm here with my esteemed colleagues. This is the full set. You've reached the landing page. I'm here with my esteemed colleagues from Parenting is Political. I'm here with Mo and Jasmine. Folks, how you doing?
We're hanging in there.
Oh, I need y'all to not do this the rest of the call.
I'm sorry.
That was bad.
That's just queer shit, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell.
We have chairs and we coordinate our outfits.
Yeah.
I had to put on a cardigan because I was like, are we both wearing gray?
Too much.
What's happening?
How long y'all been together?
5 years. We gotta stop.
Can you stop? I'm uncomfortable.
Okay, yeah.
I too am uncomfortable.
5 years.
Okay. Don't y'all have like a hand signal or something to be like,
Yeah, it's this.
all right, cisrings. All right, so welcome everyone, welcome. I am going to read this very short bio. So
Why are you so pressed about this link?
because I really want niggas to know who y'all are. So Mo, they, them pronouns, is a queer, gender, non-binary person, and Jasmine, she, her pronouns, is a queer, cisgender person. Together, they raise their blended family in Arkansas, where things are always political.
DJ's so annoyed.
Okay, hold on. So, Mo.
Can I just say the last line, please? Because I think it was the most important part of your bio.
Say it. Yeah, say it.
Together, they raise their blended family in Arkansas, where things are always political. Welcome, welcome, Mo and Jasmine. Welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So if you need to extend the bio, we would say that
Bitch, that's what you sent me. I mean,
because it was copy and paste. I was probably high when I sent it to you. I don't know.
probably.
But here's the extended version. We're a queer, trans, non-monogamous, polyamorous family. We are pretty radical for Arkansans. And
Is that what they call y'all?
Yeah, Arkansans.
People from Arkansas are Arkansans, yes.
Wow.
And Mo's a recovered Christian.
Thank God.
Recovering, honestly. Daily
Okay.
battle.
You got some stuff to still unpack, Mo? Okay.
And my day job is I'm the executive director of Uncoke My Campus, which is an organization that protects higher education as well as other institutions designed for public good, like K through 12, like
Oh, you work at education?
Like K through 12, our courts, public lands. Uncoke protects our public institutions from right-wing donors and philanthropy who use their donations to manipulate and control those institutions in favor of rolling back social progress for Black folks and queer folks. And so, yeah, I'd be in that nonprofit world. But I think the most important thing about us is that we are abolitionists.
This is super radical. This escalated very quickly. Okay, go ahead.
I know we're abolitionists.
You're making me sweat over here.
And we ascribe to an anarcho-socialist politic.
That's a lot of words. What does that mean to someone who doesn't know what that means?
Gosh, well,
Because I don't know what that shit means.
You don't know anarchin. Well, so ultimately, what our version of our political assignment comes down to is that we believe that a world without capitalism, patriarchy, and white supremacy is the world that we're working for. And so we agitate and disrupt it, whether it's in our parenting, whether it's in the nonprofit industrial complex, which I'm constantly working to subvert as an executive director, whether it's in our relationship construct, just really rejecting all of those systems of domination and violence.
All right. So sometimes it's okay to be experiencing domination, but not in the systems that you just named.
Oh, Are you
Bitch.
referencing the fact that I am a practitioner of BDSM?
I just want us to be honest about our full selves as parents, because I think
Yeah.
that's all I'm saying, is that I think a lot of times I get tripped up with being Egypt's mom. And I'm much more than Egypt's mom. I don't know if y'all feel this way about your children, but we're going to get into that. And I just wanted to set the tone as to as to what kind of conversation this was going to be. Thank you.
Are you okay talking about our sex life? Yeah. So I'm a dom top. And
that escalated super quickly. I was like, can I take a sip first? Can I get some lube before I
we're talking about kink and BDSM. And
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Sub.
And we're just really striving for a world where you don't assume masked people are the doms or the tops.
Because I like to get my dick sucked.
Yeah.
I thought this was a family program.
It's not anymore. You
should have told us that before we came on.
Family program? Children need to know that certain people suck dick.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay. So as people are joining, you have some BDSM people who are joining, they're like, yes. And then you have some people who are super kinky and just are shaming themselves, no call outs. And it was like, wow, this was super quick. But I just wanted to set the tone, because I feel like a lot of times we lose our whole selves in parenting. And I actually feel like that's like the danger zone for me, because I mean, I'm amazing as Egypt's mom, but I am also amazing, like being myself too, which it's just a component, like, so I wanted to ask y'all, like, let's just rip the Band-Aid off the bag. When you say you're a blended family, Mo, do you have any biological children with Jasmine?
Well, let's stop the biological component, because queer folks.
Educate me.
Yeah, queer couples, non-binary folks, or even cis folks don't always have biological children. Like if a lesbian couple uses a donor and one of the parents is the carrier, that means that one of the partners wouldn't be the quote unquote biological parent. But go ahead, answer your question.
Yeah.
Question, just for clarification. So should I be asking a different question when I'm asking just about step parenting, or is that something y'all don't believe in as well? Because when I said biological, I meant, is your family blended in the way that Mo has children and you also have children? Or is it just, do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah, but also some people subscribe to step parents. Some people just subscribe to bonus parents. Some people are like, no, we're parents, period, and whatever. So I'm just trying to figure out where y'all are coming from.
No, totally. Thanks for clarifying. So our family happened in a really interesting way. I was married to a cis het man for 9 years. And
it was weird.
He ended up being my abuser and sexually assaulting all 3 of our children. And then I took him to private court because the state wouldn't intervene, and he surrendered his rights and gave up his rights to the kids because he didn't want all of his activity and violence to be put on the stand. Basically, I was all of the kids' therapists, and they were going to testify in support of the kids and their reports. During this time, I was already divorced, and Mo and I were together. Mo adopted the 3 children that I had with my ex-husband. So Mo is on the birth certificates. It's Jasmine and Mo. And then together, we tried to get pregnant a couple of times. We had 2 miscarriages through insemination donors. And then the 4th time, we had a known donor and got pregnant. And that was the baby we had together, August.
That's so amazing. And just even the reframing of that conversation really challenges cishet norm, like, of what parenting actually means. So I appreciate that, because in my mind, I'm like, as a step parent to several sets of children, I'm like, I say that these are not my biological children. So thank you for reframing that for me. So I appreciate it. Joy, go ahead.
Just say, I personally don't identify as a step parent. I always identify as a parent. And where I'm at in my learning process is just deconstructing what family is.
Okay.
So much of the language we use around it is
heteronormative,
rooted in heteronormative
and
stuff.
state recognizing the definition of family.
Yeah.
And honestly, the state has no right to do that.
Yeah.
No, that's valid because like unless you were to have not if you were to not have taken those steps, Mo, like would the state even recognize you as the parent of these children, even though y'all have been together all this time?
No.
And so like we're giving into the state is what y'all are
Still don't get
even though we like paid for donor sperm, Mo was there from the very beginning. Mo's name was put on the birth certificate in the room when I gave birth to August. Mo still had to go to a court and adopt August.
Yeah. Just because
of Arkansas's law that says that two people of the same gender or the same assigned gender, in Mo's case, can't just have a kid. The state has to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Whereas if Mo was
that's fucking deep because it like goes into the whole dichotomy of like tracking births and like all this.
Yeah. So if Mo was like a cis dude and we weren't married and we had a baby together, Mo would have never had to appear in court and adopt their own child.
Right.
But honestly, thank God I'm not a cis dude.
Who wants to be that?
I appreciate. I just had a shit post. I was like, they're never gonna unlearn misogyny unless they're dead, and so that's fine. It's fine. The whole thing is fine. I know that people think that I'm a pessimist, but they're just never gonna unlearn it until they're unlearned in general. So thank you for that explanation. I can't believe I said that out loud, but it was real. Joya says, "Hey y'all."
Hi.
Everyone loves Joya. Really, that's what that comes down to. So I want to ask you like a super serious question. How are we grappling with intergenerational trauma that we pass down in the disciplining of our children in order to protect them? And I'm asking that question because off camera, I told y'all, I have these gardening shears and they're on the second shelf. But I have to remember that Egypt, although they are 3 years old, is the same height as little Ken, right? And but in my heart, like I was so angry. I'm like, how could you play with these? Are you fucking crazy? Like it was so ableist in this house. But I was so scared like of like them these are garden shears. I mean, serious. Like, and I was just so afraid of slicing a finger, going to the hospital, COVID. But really that fear and that anger comes from me being upset with myself that I wasn't there to protect them. And so it's like, how does the trauma of also me not being protected, right? Like play into that, and how do you mitigate it knowing what you know now? And if you and say someone's tuning in and didn't know that they were experiencing trauma when they're like their reaction is to be like, what the hell? Like, you know, how what are some steps folks can take, parents can take to work on themselves in the midst of trauma? And I know y'all got a lot of trauma, so let's talk about it.
You want to take it or me?
Yeah. You started off, I'll jump in.
Well, I mean, I think that, if you want me to put on my licensed therapist hat.
Please do. Come on, parenting is political.
Yeah.
I even made your name so apropos at the bottom of the screen. You're welcome. Thank you.
So, you know, at any time we are in close relationship with a young person and we, over our own development, our psychosocial development, have experienced trauma, whenever that child is at the developmental stage that we experience trauma, we re-experience it. It's just a natural part of intimate relationships. It's a natural part of dyadic relationships, which is what caregiving and parenting is, right? It is a dyadic relationship where their well-being depends on us and our well-being depends on them, which is so divorced from what mainstream white hetero patriarchal society tells you, which is you're the parent and you're up here and your kid's down here, but it's not that at all. No. You co-regulate with your young person regularly. So whenever they do something or they experience something, if you had a traumatic moment as a part of your upbringing, you re-experience that trauma through them.
So the whole not touching the stove and then getting in trouble for it when you touch the stove. Yeah. I'm experiencing that as a parent when Egypt does something wild.
And what is happening in that moment is you're affirming the things that you were taught about yourself in that child, or you're disrupting them, or you're relearning something else. And I particularly experienced it because I was a child sexual rape and assault survivor myself. Every moment that my child, even if it's not traumatic, you know, when my 9-year-old daughter started developing and moving into puberty, I started like feeling anxiety because her body was becoming sexual looking to me. It was sexualizing. And I was, it was like so much panic.
You were like, I can't deal with this because you already know what happened to you.
Yeah, because I remember when I was 8-year-old Jasmine and started having breast buds, what happened to me. And so really, it's about a consistent practice of every day, figuring out where you're at with yourself, being present with yourself, and always also being present in your relationship with your kids. And sometimes you're not going to catch it. You're going to like freak out on them. You're going to scream. You're going to act like your mom was. Like my mom was a screamer and she was incredibly violent and domestically abusive. And there are moments where I would like grab one of my kids and just go, ah, and then pause, like frozen in this moment of like, oh shit, I'm back there with her.
Right.
I'm doing this to them. And when I'm in those moments, all I can do is say, hey, you deserve better. That was wrong. Here's why it's wrong. Here's why I'm not going to do it again. And here's the steps I'm going to take to not do it again. So there's that internal process, but then there's also like the really complicated process of the external gaze and how much pressure, particularly as like a queer Black mom, I have to make sure my kids are behaving in a way that people aren't judging me.
I'm glad you said you're Black because the glare is really, really bad on you and it makes you look lighter than you really are. Thank you. Thank you. They were like, "What? Why did you bring a white person on the show, Delgado?" Like,
I'm light bright, but I'm Black. And so
I'm white, though.
Yes, the fuck you are. Go ahead.
But there's so much misogynoir and pressure for like policing Black motherhood that I found myself, even though my politics tend to be very radical and abolitionist, being in public and be like, you better behave so no one judges us.
Right.
And so I have to check myself, and there has to be like a level of self-accountability in how I manage. And there has to be like a level of like, fuck what you think about me. But then again, how it's so complicated, and Dee Dee, I know you know this, sometimes being out in public, particularly if I'm in Arkansas or some other place that's not safe, engaging in the respectability and the pressure of the respectability
is safety.
Keeps me and my children safe.
Right. It's definitely safety.
Yeah, and as far as like interrupting that intergenerational trauma that we were talking about, we talk a lot on the podcast and on our pages about the process of reparenting yourself, and that really throws a wrench in the whole generational trauma. If you take the time to understand that so much of our interactions with our kids are based in our own way that we were brought up as when we were kids, the ability to identify that and to also be like, oh, that's me, that's the little Mo trying to be like, hey, I want to like speak for myself in this moment, and my mom would never let me do that. And so whenever my kid is like screaming that they want to be heard and they don't want to do this thing I'm telling them, and I'm like squashing that and being like, no, you have to listen to me, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to reparent myself by allowing my kid the full range of their emotions because I was never allowed to. And in that moment, little Mo gets to go, okay, that's another win for us. Like we can build that resiliency now. And then we can also stop that like continuation of trauma.
But we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that some of our socioeconomic privilege and some of Mo's whiteness and our extended community, having a lot of like economically privileged and white folks who have lent their resources to us, has given us pathways to develop these kind of things. If I'm a single Black mom and I got a latchkey kid that comes, home, and I'm working the graveyard shift, and we're barely making it and we don't have food and there's all kinds of stress and shit going on, I may not have the resiliency and resources because of my lack of access.
I'm so glad you're saying this because so many experts will get on the show and be like, I don't know why you're having problems.
Yeah, and like to slow down and de-escalate my own emotional state. Whenever the lights are about to be turned off and we ain't got no food in the house, fuck your feelings, do what the fuck I said, and go to your room, right? And that's okay too.
Because at this point, someone's got to do what the fuck I'm saying.
Right? Absolutely. So it's holding those things in tension. And then we have a complicated situation that we're in an interracial relationship, and Mo's like in a trans racial parenting situation. And there are certain things around discipline and feedback that Mo doesn't get to weigh in on, because a white parent will always have a really violent bias. And no matter how much work they do, how like down they are, how much they're ready to be a race traitor, it's not their place to engage with Black young people in that way. And so Mo will step back. And
I'm glad you said that, because I was on the phone with someone. I won't mention their name because I don't want to seem like I'm name dropping, but I was on the phone with someone today, and she was talking about how she was thinking about asking Eve to come on her show. Because Eve was talking about how like this current climate is like the first time she's had to really speak to her partner about the fact that Black Lives Matter. Like, it's their political views never really came up in their conversation. I think that I don't know, because I mean, I've only dated 5 white people my entire life, and they were all mistakes. But you and Mo seem to be doing pretty good. So like, whatever. I don't know.
Knows there's a moratorium on white people from this point on. You know, my critical consciousness was not developing at the same rate of my relationships, right? And so I did have a white husband, and I have dated Mo and then married Mo, and I think it's helpful that we're
But you live in a really white fucking demographic,
right? So I think that
are there 5 Black dudes in your town?
I mean, yeah, and
that's all I'm saying.
They love white.
That's all I'm saying. And they love white women.
But I also
your choices, Tanya said yesterday, your choices is shit and pee. Which one are you gonna pick? I don't know.
Yeah. So, and it helps that I'm non-monogamous and I can date folks, and I have lots of other partners of color and Black partners that are outside of Arkansas. But then there's also that quote that I can't remember, that like, I went where love was, or I don't remember who said it. I'm butchering it. But yeah, it's complicated and it takes a lot of work, and I don't recommend interracial adoption or interracial marriage unless it's like real deep work that is
and commitment to doing that work, because just because Mo has you doesn't mean that they'll always have you. So
facts.
Yeah. Look at you, all in the knowing. Okay, I want to share a viewer comment. I can't believe I have viewers. It's amazing.
You do.
Well, you know, it is what it is. So
Dee though.
What did you say about my father?
You said my pronoun is Dee though.
Well, I mean, people need to know. I had an extensive conversation. I also won't name that person, but they were like, no, seriously, what's your pronoun? And I was like, you know, Ashley Shackelford taught me that like they are non-binary and their pronouns are not they and them. Like, just call them Ashley. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's it, because they are so like in this weird state of like, I don't want you to trigger me, because today I might not feel in the she, and I might not feel in the he, and I definitely don't feel in the they. Who the fuck is they? Sorry, Mo, or whatever. But that's what she said in her article. She was like, you can call me any pronoun, but I specifically won't subscribe to they series pronouns, because I feel multitude. So you can call me they, but don't make it seem like they, like, you know. And I thought about it, and I was like, if somebody says she, it's nails on a chalkboard. It doesn't really fit if someone says he, and it certainly doesn't fit me if they say they. So I literally just like, please use my name, because I'm in my own head about who I am every day, and then you calling me something else like jars me, and I try not to get upset. So yes, my pronoun is just Dee though. Thank you. Maria said, I've seen my trauma show up when I hesitated to let my daughter at 9 years old wear a love is love rainbow hat to school. I went right back to kids that bullied me. I had 2 moms, and I didn't want that for her. As after I called my mom crying, we processed that, and she wore it with pride. And so what you're saying, it just goes back to like this systemic bullshit that we live in or whatever, that doesn't allow actual freedom. You know, it's like a prescribed dose of freedom that you're allowed to have. Epi, that's it. Okay. Like, you know what I'm saying? So thank y'all for sharing that.
I relate to that a lot. When our kids go to school, they go in very proud. Like, I got a mama and I got a baba. And then they're like, their peers are like, well, what's a baba? And they're like, well, one of my parents is non-binary. And I'm always, my first immediate reaction is just like, don't say anything.
You're like, I'm not who I am.
Yeah, like, but that's my own coming up. So
right.
I relate to that.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Look at us touching lives. So there, one of my friends who doesn't have children says, how does parenting change once your children interact with families or your friends or families that are of their friends. And I think about that as like, Egypt is raised pretty much as a free-spirited child. But when I see them getting too free, I'm like, I know that you're about to be around other people. We gotta hone it in, my nigga. Like, we gotta be good until we're home again. Like, you know? And so, like, do you ever feel the pressure to like modify your parenting style based on family you're around or friends that aren't really friends or frenemies?
We try not to have those.
We don't have frenemies unless they're covert.
Yeah.
But once they make themselves known, we quickly cut off from them. And we are lucky enough to have built a family. We don't have a lot of biological family that supports us and cares for us. We have a lot of radical chosen family that is equally as valid. You know, both of us come from queer and Black traditions where kinfolk, and my kids have all the aunties and all the like drag queen mamas and cousins and everything else. And so that's pretty fantastic. When we have to act a certain way in public, that's usually where it gets bristly. Or if we're in some kind of like public school setting, that's also really hard. For us, it's always a question of safety. You know, our oldest daughter is 13 and she's a trans girl, and she's super out and proud that she's a trans girl. And she has been insulated enough by a really protective community that she's had minimal violence as a result of that, which is not the standard. And so when she goes out in public spaces and is like, I'm a tranny panty, I'm like, bitch, don't say that.
Yeah.
And she's like, but what, mom? I'm a transgender pansexual. I want a t-shirt. And I'm like, you're not wearing that in public.
It's just not safe where we live.
So for us, it always comes down to a question of safety and less about other people's perception of us.
But as far as like going to our friend's house and we bring our kids, we parent the same way at home that we do at our friend's house.
Such bravery.
We just try to be
my friends are like, oh, you let your kid eat crayons? Oh, okay.
Yeah, kids love to eat crayons.
I'm like, this nigga's gonna learn one day. It's not good. Like, what do you want me to say? Like,
it's been really interesting. Our style of parenting has actually helped our extended community in ways, because they would like try to intervene with something that was happening with one of our kids, and we'd be like, no, just step back and let them fight and do it. Like, their kids and our kids. And they'd be like, what? Really? But what if one lands a blow on somebody's face? I'm like, well, that's gonna hurt, and they're gonna figure it out. And so we've been able to do that. And then we also have friends who help us calm down, because I can become the like rigid authoritarian pretty easily. And we have folks who are like, just let your kids be kids. So
yeah,
we're lucky in that regard. But we also live in Arkansas, so
on purpose.
Don't be too jealous of us.
No, I was like, on purpose. Wow.
On purpose. We love the South.
Is it the South? It's a little the Midwest.
Arkansas is the South.
It's a little Midwest, though.
I already know who you've been talking to. Okay. So anyways, there's that. I'm moving on from that conversation. Something, I liked what you said earlier. I want to go back to that just briefly about when Mo was saying that there is like this like soothing effort that's like healing for you yourself as a parent. And then also you're like, oh, this is a win in my book, right? I think about Egypt has been crying a lot lately, and I've just been so annoyed. I mean, like so annoyed where I'm like rolling my eyes like, oh my God, what is it now? But I actually can't get mad because I've been crying a lot lately, right? And so even though I've been crying a lot lately, I'm like, somebody's got to tough it up around here. It's got to be you, 3-year-old. And so I'm like, what now, Egypt? And I was doing it. And Egypt's language has actually improved so much that she said to me, I want my friends. And I started crying again. So I was going to make a post about like all the reasons why Egypt cries. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like because their tablet died and I don't have the charger, or like, you know, and these are the reasons why I cry. But we just like sat there and cried together. And I'm like, do you need to just cry some more? Like, you know, because I grew up with my mom always saying, shut up before I give you something to cry about. Like, you know what I'm saying? And me asking my child, do you just need to cry for a little bit longer? This happened tonight. And she was like, yes. Like, and I was like, okay, me too. And so I just rocked her back and forth and we cried together like two assholes. And then I was like, are you okay now? And she's like, I want to go play with mama. She doesn't know how to say Irma, which is one of my really good friends. So she's mama or whatever. I want to go play with her. I was like, you can't because she's in the city. I want to go do this with my friends. I'm like, you can't because they're probably not your friend group anymore because you're now going to public school. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's all this stuff or whatever. So I just appreciate like y'all reframing that and saying that when you address and like you do it in a different way. Cause my mom sometimes creeps up with me, you know, she's an ancestor, she's no longer here with us, but she creeps up and she's like, ask her what the fuck she's crying about. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I want to be like that, but I'm like, no, there's a reason why. You probably don't understand pandemic. You're 3. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I really appreciate that framing. Um, Rosita said, would you move out of Arkansas? Because
No.
¿Por qué no?
This is our home. There's so much work to be done here.
The escalations keep happening, but you're there to do the work because you're raising a multi-blended, I say multi-blended because of all your intersections, family. So Maria said, do your kids ever get bullied at school? If so, what do you say or do to them to help them through it?
The first thing I say whenever they get in the car, like so and so, I'm like, okay, tell me their name. Look up where their mom lives. I'm gonna go beat their mom's ass. And my kids are like, you're not gonna do that, mommy. You don't beat people up.
You're like,
and I'm like,
you're like, is their mom named Becky Lynn? Yes, the fuck I do then.
Yeah.
Bars.
Yeah. And we really do encourage our young people to defend themselves physically when other kids are physical with them. And the school has called us many a time.
Tobias likes to be a little bit.
And been like, Tobias socked somebody in the face. Tobias is like, yo, he said that I was ugly because I was part of a Black family and he tried to choke me. And I'm like, good, I hope you hit him harder next time. So we talk through the like developmental conversations around it. We talk through why ultimately you can like try and remove yourself from the situation, or you can de-escalate the person who's bullying you, or you can figure out how to organize support from adults. But in the schools that we have been in Arkansas, the adults don't really take brown and Black children very seriously whenever they're being bullied. And so we just teach our kids how to be really subversive and defend themselves.
We do, and we also encourage them to like recenter the power. Like we usually just talk about the power that we give to people who are really mean to us and how we can take that back, and we don't have to necessarily believe those things, but we also don't have to like lay down and take it.
Yeah. And I mean, to be clear, like we're not out here being like, here's some jujitsu moves and
I don't see why not. Burn the whole thing down.
Take your machete to school and like pick fights. That's not what it's about. But oftentimes the majority white schools, these cis white kids, they immediately escalate to violence on Black and brown bodies. And we are, like I said, we are not the like neoliberal love wins kind of bullshit. We're like, we will bring our machetes and our fists and we'll knock you the fuck out. Like, you don't get to choke me on the playground.
I'm so mad at you. Today I was on a call. Shamel had asked me to be on a call for like mental health and shit. And I was like, love is a liberation. I was like, oh my God, I sound like a white woman or whatever. Like, so
there's truth to that, but we frame love often through the like white neoliberal or liberal.
Right, that's what I meant. I was like, I don't mean it in the way that I should mean it. I mean it in the way that a white woman means it.
Yeah. Sometimes love is like, if you step to me, I'm gonna knock you the fuck out.
Maria said she appreciates you taking the time to answer. Aww. What would you say is the difference between your first child and your current child?
How much time do we have?
Well,
I'm asking because I might, if I didn't get a part of my cervix knocked out this weekend, I might consider having another child in 2 years. Huge if.
Well, I mean, if your cervix is not in operation, and you just surrogate, I got you.
You do?
Yeah.
Because I feel like you like being pregnant. I liked being pregnant.
I love being pregnant.
Everybody was like, you're going to experience this, you're going to experience that. And I was like, I was like fucking Julie Andrews. I was like, the hills are alive with the sounds of music.
Yeah,
in my pregnancy.
that fetus and their hormones were so stable, it stabilized mine. I was like, is this what it feels like to be grounded and have a typical functioning brain? Not think about like,
oh, you're not allowed to laugh at our shit. You're doing it anyways. Okay, great.
What was the question though?
I don't remember.
It was, the first child.
Oh, first child. I mean, well, the first child I assigned male at birth, and that was real fucking wrong.
You're like, this is actually not correct.
Yeah, no, she was like, about the time she was 5, well, it was like from the very beginning into like 3, but by the time she was 5, she had these crushes on these little boys in her class and in her, like, our play groups, and I'd be like, oh, so do you think that you might be gay? And she was like, no. I was like, well, no, when a boy likes a boy, it means you're gay, and that's totally okay because mommy's queer and that's okay. Zara was like, if a girl likes a boy, it's not gay. No. She's like, no, when I grow up and I get my period, I'll become a girl. Mm-hmm. Right? So that was the beginning of our journey. My journey with Zara. And then Mo met Zara when she was 7, 8, 9. I don't remember. 9, math is hard. And by that time, Zara was already starting to be in the process of socially transitioning after many years of therapy and all kinds of different interventions. But yeah, I mean, when Zara was born, I was married to a cishet white man doing ministry in the church.
I can believe it.
Yeah. I was a worship
your shoulders give me worship leader vibes. I mean, I want to, you got to relax, sis. You got to relax.
No, my shoulders give you Virgo vibes.
They don't. Okay. So I know that when I first met you, whatever meeting you means, right? In maybe 2017, there was some pushback that you were experiencing. And I'm going to ask a 2-pronged question. Sure. The first part was like people being all in your business for no reason. And they were just like, oh, you can't be having these conversations with your children because they're too young to know, you know. And I think I identified with y'all's journey as a family because I've been having these conversations with Egypt for quite some time because I'm unpacking my own shit, right? Mm-hmm. And the first question is, how did you, in order to support your daughter, how did you like ignore the shit that people had to say, right? And the second part is, damn, I had a really good question. And the Cosmopolitan / margarita mix that Mo definitely said I could drink just didn't let me compute it. So the first part of my question is, how do you deal with the critique that is online? Because obviously you all are very much experts on parenting. You have like 10,000 children, first of all, right? Together. Second of all, the fact that you're blended and that you're poly and it's a different kind of parenting actually expands the word parent, right? And so you have that framing and it's important. I'll ask my first question first, and I feel like the second question will come to me. I got the second question. So how did you deal with the critique? And in the midst of still caring and supporting for your daughter. And then secondly, there was a question. And sometimes I have this question. I'm like, whenever I call y'all, whatever, it's all nice, cute, ha ha ha, whatever. And Zara's like, hi, you know, but I don't consider myself an aunt. Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't consider, I'm like, these are my colleagues. I appreciate y'all. We talk from time to time. Don't do that face. But I remember that there was a time when so many people who were trying to support you were also feeling like connected in the same way that I felt connected by the story and wanted to follow along. And I know that there was a mix up about like, actually, no, because now you're trying to insert yourself. We've got our community. And so it's like, when do you make boundaries?
And say the person's name. I know exactly what you're talking about.
No, I won't. It's not because it's not a diss. It's just, I feel like as people who have online personas and who do choose to share personal things, just because I'm an online persona doesn't mean I have to respond back to everything. Yeah. Right? I can just share the thing. Oprah can be like, guys, I just started a brand new fucking book of the month or whatever, right? And then niggas can ask 200,000 comments worth of questions or leave comments, Oprah never has to come back to the comment section, right? And y'all, being who y'all are like, we are Zara's parents. And like, people either had critique or people were like, well, I'm invested in the story because I'm this also. Like, you know what I'm saying? And whether it was me feeling like, I totally get it. I've been having gendered conversations with my kid forever, right? Or someone else being like, and I'm an aunt in this, right? Because you're going to take all of my advice about what I went through personally. And so I guess I'm just trying to ask y'all how y'all mitigate safety, boundaries, and like your own family and your own personal business while being public figures. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah. I mean, because of the work that I've done over the years in so many ways, writing articles for parents.com and different things that I've done, I didn't have a lot of a choice to not be visible in certain ways. And what happens with that visibility is folks get attached to the story. They get attached to the idea of who my children are through my curated storytelling of them, and then assume they have more power and influence to speak into my children's lives or in what I'm talking about in my children's lives. And I'm really, really clear about my boundaries, that we have chosen family, of which, even though Delgado was like, oh, I'm a colleague, Delgado is a part of that chosen family. And unless you've been invited into that space, don't come at me with what you think I should or shouldn't be doing with my children.
Because it was like, at this point, it was very personal. It was like, the advice was like, you should not be taking tea. Yeah. And, I remember the conversation. I was like, if someone was telling me what to do with my child's reproductive organs, I would feel some type of way. But also public figure.
Exactly. But just because we're a public figure, or we tell our story publicly, does not give others consent to weigh in on our life in that way. And so I tend to, fight back pretty strong with that. Like, no, thank you. We've got plenty of aunties and nibblings and different people in our lives, and you're not someone that's been invited. And that's ultimately, that's about consent. Right? Like, just because we are able to have a gaze into someone's life doesn't mean that we need to take up space. It needs to be consensual. And that was what bothered me. If that person or other people have reached out and been like, hey, we really care about you, we're invested in Zara's journey, can I engage in this way and ask my permission? And now, like, Zara knows them and considers them like our extended family, but it's the presumption and the lack of consent, really, that it comes down to. But also, Zara has a whole care team that has been with her since she was like 3 years old.
There's an entire team here.
Right. So I'm not trying to come to the internet and have strangers give me a critique on, Zara's medical protocol. But I think that any parent who has a child who deviates from like the heteronormative spectrum feels that way. I know I have friends who have kids who have disabilities, who people are always telling them, have you tried essential oils for your child with
give them the lavender
with multiple sclerosis? And it's like, what the fuck?
Right.
So I think that's typical. And ultimately, I'm not like angry at the people that engage that way. I understand that it comes from a place of love and wanting to be involved. I think that we should just practice consensual relationship building. And I'm not in your house trying to tell you without your permission. Don't come and try and tell me.
Yeah, we try to post regularly on our pages the reminder that you're welcome here until you're not.
Oh shit. Shots fired. So, and actually I'm thinking about a story. There's a couple that I have, but there was one where a friend of mine, and I still love her dearly, and we've gotten past it because now she knows that like she's had to have tough conversations with her children, like, and I'm like, sometimes she'll talk about something and I'm like, I don't think that your child is old enough to have that conversation. But I remember when I first started, before I had a child, I was examining my gender in like 2014. And she was like, you can't talk like this around my kids. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what I'm saying? Like, and she's like, because my kids don't need to know this. Like, and I was just like, oh, like, so I think that's why I made it such a big deal about like using all sorts of pronouns with Egypt and saying she series and they series, and just because I didn't want to force something on Egypt. And me sharing my story with Egypt saying, I'm a big girl, mom. Like, what I'm saying? I was like, my nigga, are you a girl? Like, you know, so I just need to know you're clarifying it, like, you know? And she's like, yes. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna go with that then. It's cool. But I also think about other things. There was a mom one time, I don't even think this bitch was a mom, but whatever. She was a person with an opinion. I had taken this cute photo of Egypt. Egypt's with a bottle, screw face, like get the fuck out of my face with this camera, mom. Like this white, like fur coat on, looking like rough ends, rough riders. I don't know, somebody rough, like, you know, like they drive a 99 Escalade. And it was such, do you remember this photo? It was such a cute photo. And this white woman dropped her shit on my post and was like, you're supposed to be driving with the car seat turned in the opposite direction. You're going to kill your own child. And I'm like, this woman would never know that at 2 years old, Egypt was in the 98th percentile for her height and weight. And that it was appropriate. Look at my face. It was appropriate for Egypt to be face forward. It's my face forward face. And so it really just like bothered me that I was arguing with people on the internet about how I curate safety for my children. So I just want to say, like, I understand. And I just wanted you to like chime in on it because I was like, is it just me? Like that gets like so viscerally angry. Like if anybody wants to have a critique about my child, period, I'm fucking somebody up.
I mean, we have been raised in an imperialist, you know, police state. So the idea of policing, particularly for white folks to police how Black and brown parents show up.
Super white. She was super white.
Is just so normal. And then even within our own communities of color, and especially Black communities, there's a sort of like respectability. You got to do this the right way because the whites are looking and don't fuck it up for the rest of us. And so there's a lot of policing that goes on. I think there are learning edges that happen, right? I think there are things that people don't know because it's not mainstream information. And so reaching out and being like, hey, did you know best practices around?
If she would have inboxed me, I think it would have been different.
Yeah, look like this. I didn't know this and I want to share it with you.
Right.
And
she was so concerned for my child's safety. She wrote me a soliloquy in my inbox or whatever about like how, and I was just like, so anyways, I wanted to ask you also, like, so you described how your relationship is with Zara, right? But then how you're a new mom all over again. Like this is like brand new. And y'all just had August. Did you like my little introduction? Y'all just had August. And so like what has it been like sort of like on the Ayanla Fix My Life starting over house?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's the first time since I became a parent that I was not in a sexually and domestically like violent relationship.
Wow.
And that my children were free from violence and that I wasn't struggling to like be safe in my own home. And it's been a grieving process because I look at August and how August moves through developing. August is about to be 2. And I'm like, oh shit, I remember Zara and Addison. And having the comparison helps me see at what early age the other 3 children were being sexually violated and experiencing violence. And I regularly look at Mo and how Mo parents August, and I just say, what would it have been like if the other 3 kids would have had this kind of support and love? And so I feel a deep sense of regret and remorse. And I'm working on like forgiving myself and like
your own shit around that, the shame.
Because it's so much shame, you know. There were a lot of reasons that I made the choices I made in the multiple ways that I made them. But it's been really beautiful to see the other kids also learn to like play and have more of a carefree childhood through August. So this idea that our children are not here to heal us and we need to get our shit together so that we can be the parents, and that's just more like extractive, like cis heteropatriarchal bullshit. Communities are ecosystems, right? And when one of us is healing and thriving, it helps other people heal and thrive. And it's not our responsibility, it's not the responsibility of our children to initiate that healing and to do the work for us. But as they're growing and as they're existing, we heal together. And they can do healing work for us just by being who they are. So it's been really fantastic to see all of that go down. And I low-key am like, our youngest kids are going to be the better ones. We fucked up the first couple. No, we
Same.
did.
I know. I was thinking like, am I my mom? Like, you know what I'm saying? I was thinking that when I was giving Egypt a bath, and Egypt was like, but I want to play. I don't want bubbles. I was like, well, you're gonna get what I give you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I was like, you know, it's a lavender bath. It's supposed to be helping right now. Like, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna get this lavender.
For good measure, every once in a while, when August is a bit more like cognizant of what I'm saying, I'm gonna let August know, like, I brought you into this world. I can take you out. Like, I'm still gonna do those things.
Right. Like there's no such thing as perfect parenting. And I really actually want the parents that follow me to delete me, because for them to say that 365 days of the year, like that's respectability politics over and out. Like Roger 10 code. I don't know what the fucking code system is on the walkie talkie, but Roger and out. I hate those parents, and I want them to like, I want their children to hate them when they grow up. And I can't believe I'm saying that.
I don't think it's real. And I don't think
it's not real.
I don't think it's sustainable. And I think actually what it is doing is creating a veneer for actual harm.
Bitch, did you say veneer?
Yeah. Okay. A mask for the real shit that they're hiding. Because when that like surface breaks, all that other shit erupts. Like we live real life with our kids. We'll be like, turn on the TV for an hour. We're going to lock our door and go fuck. And don't bother us.
Right.
Like, eat some snacks.
That was one of the questions I had to ask you. So as y'all know, I'm completing nuptials, but I'm still not monogamous. I don't care. So anyways, so I just want to know, like, when I finally allow my husband, because I was like, we not moving in until we get married, straight jacket. So when I finally allow him to move in, I just want to know like what it feels like to like shift parameters. Like I've been like on my own, and Jasmine, you might understand this, like terrible relationship after terrible relationship, and not wanting to expose Egypt to terrible relationships. And now I'm in a like healthy relationship, and I'm like, okay, so how do we, you know, like they're around each other all the time, but it's never like overnight. Like it's like Egypt went to this person's house for babysitting or whatever, like, you know, because I have that sort of same thing. Like I, you know, and it's not about predatory, it's about my space. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, how do I feel comfortable locking the door that doesn't really lock? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and things like that. Like, how as a blended family have y'all navigated still being yourselves, full fucking selves, full shower fucking selves? I read the fucking Facebook stories. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm hot and bothered right now. Like, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. Y'all mind y'all business. But I just want to know, how do y'all maintain an active sex life with so many children?
I mean, it's that we put boundaries in place, and we say we're going to lock the door. We're not going to be in here. And you don't come and bother us unless something's on fire or somebody's really bleeding out. Mm-hmm. So there's that. And then of course my kids and my family, our community knows that we're not monogamous, and my kids have met several of the people that I was dating, and one of the people that was like a partner, more of a serious energy, and they're just a part of it. Like sex and sexuality, they already have a sexuality,
right?
Like they are young people who have sexuality, and so seeing it modeled in an appropriate way and normalizing it is really critical for destigmatizing a lot of the shit that's embedded in our society. But I mean, I have been with Mo for 5 years, and I would like to get a house big enough where I can have my own room. And I've also been like, what if we could do like the Frida and Diego thing, where you get a house and I get a house, and we have a bridge that connects, and you leave me the fuck alone. So I know I don't get a vote, but like maybe consider not letting your husband move. I'm one of those people that I'm like, maybe none of y'all.
Maybe, because the person I thoroughly enjoyed my weekend with was not my husband. So I mean, I'm missing a part of my cervix is all I know. Is that's what it's come down to. It came out in the shower today. I was like, wow, that escalated. That was a delayed reaction to trauma. Okay, so
talk to your kids about sex and let them know that you have sex, that people have sex.
So it's interesting because Egypt has developmental disabilities and is still in nighttime diapers, right? And so during the day, they're in their underwear, fine, no issues. But during the night, I just don't trust my eagle-eye, cherry-eye to be like, are you gonna not go in the bed? And so in the morning when they wake up, I'm like wiping them, doing the powder routine. and Egypt likes to like touch certain parts of her body. And I'm like, my mom would have been like, no, we don't touch that. My mom grew up super Roman Catholic, like, you know, and was like, we don't touch our body parts. And I'm like, did you know that that's your vagina? Or do you know that that's your thigh? Like, you know, and I just normalize it. I don't try to shame Egypt. And so something I wanted to ask you about was about, you had shared something on your page, and the quote was, you'll never be able to shame yourself into becoming a better parent. So with that, I will say that shame seems to be intrinsically tied into parenthood. How do you move away from shame, and what are we supposed to be moving towards?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that we can feel ashamed of our behaviors in the moment. And that's useful. It's useful to move us to a place of transformation. But what I was referencing in that was this toxic shame that doesn't say you did something bad, but that you are bad.
Right.
And I think it's really easy, particularly for folks who are socialized as women or femmes, to be driven by shame, by social shame around parenting and just pretty much anything in our existence, honestly, whether it's what our body looks like or how we do our hair or not do our hair. And so what really we move toward is not anything that can be a model. Like my version of excising or like rooting out the shame in me is not the same process for you. And so I always ask myself, or tell folks who are asking me how they should confront shame as a parent, to ask themselves the question, is this me living into the free life that I want to have? Like, is this a liberatory practice? And is this in alignment with who I want to be in the world in this moment? So that's the first question that I have them ask. And then the second question I have them ask themselves is, okay, I'm feeling shame. It's about this certain thing. Who taught me that? Who gave me that myth? Who told me that story? And if we're really honest, and I'm like, okay, well, I told myself that I'm a bad mom and I'll never be able to protect my kids. Well, actually, that was my ex-husband. Well, actually, that was my mom when she didn't protect me from my abuser. Well, actually, that's her mom when her family didn't protect her from her brother and incest, right? And so you go back, and it harkens back to that earlier question you had around intergenerational trauma. So ultimately, when we're trying to find the pathways of shame, if we start with who told me that story about myself, that is an opportunity to be curious and to really start challenging that shit. But it's not enough just to figure out who told you that story. Once you figure out who told you that story and why you took over the narrative for them and you became the abuser in your own head, you have to decide what story you want to be about instead. Right? So for me, I had to be like, well, actually, I'm a really fucking powerful mom. I'm like a mama bear. I fought that man and took the children from him. I have kept them safe. That's the truth about me. And so when you have that alternative narrative, that alternative story, you have to practice saying it to yourself.
And it's very easy to like adopt other people's narratives and their stories, because it's like, well, we've been taught so long that I wasn't supposed to do this and I wasn't supposed to say that and I wasn't supposed to feel what I was actually feeling. I remember there was one time that like my stepfather, and I'll call him my stepfather, although he had legally adopted me, one time he made steak. I think I was like 10. He made steak and it was like medium rare, because that's how that motherfucker liked to eat his steak. And it was like peas, it was like white rice. So I ate all the white rice because my fat ass loves carbs, period, or whatever. And then like I was playing with the peas, pushing them around on my plate, but I wasn't going to eat the steak because it was like bleeding out in my mind. Now I'm a grown ass adult. I love fucking medium. Like, don't even maybe give me medium rare. But at 10 years old, my palate wasn't developed for all the bleeding that the cow was doing on my plate. And I remember saying to him, it's alive still. I can't eat this. And like, I got beat for like defying the fact that this person was trying to nourish me, whatever that meant, and feed me what like the spoils of the steak that they had bought. Like, you know, how dare you not respect the fact that I finally was able to afford this fucking $15 piece of meat, like, you know. And so I think about that all the time. I think when I'm with Egypt, you know, if I'm eating something and Egypt goes, I want some. My mom used to be like, shit, I can't have nothing. Like, you know what I'm saying? But it comes from the scarcity mindset. Is Mo laughing? It comes from the scarcity mindset of like, damn, I finally get a moment to myself and I can't have it. So this conversation has been super impactful for me because I'm like unpacking all the ways in which like I am so much like my mom, you know what I'm saying? And like I really appreciate this conversation. The second last question I want to ask you, because I know that Mo is literally eating a now and later inside of their head because they want to go to sleep now, not later. And so like, is how do you deal with conflict? This is a theme that has been going on since fucking April 9th is when we did the first show. And asking this question has always proved a different answer. So I'll be quiet while you tell me, like, what's the best way to deal with conflict? And like, how are we moving towards liberation? Because I think of all the conflict and I think of like actually what's going on in the world and how some of it does matter and some of it doesn't.
Often what we say is that conflict breeds intimacy. We have very open arguments and discussions and disagreements in our household. We don't try to hide that fact. And for us, the important thing that we always come back to is we can have a huge blow up argument and it can be really shitty and awful, but that when you come back and you do that repair work, that's whenever things really start to change and it becomes really restorative and less punitive.
Are your kids allowed to be involved in the conflict?
Hell yeah.
The more
Why? I was like,
yeah, they need to actively see people like in states that are dysregulated. They need to see anger, whether it's productive or unproductive. They need to see me being differentiated and having a really fucking different opinion. They need to see people having real hurt feelings, because it's only through observing how the conflict unfolds and then how we come back and do repair work that they can figure out where they're at in that constellation.
We also know that fear of open conflict is a product of white supremacy culture. Like,
I'll fight somebody.
Yeah.
Say fear of open conflict one more again.
Yeah. So we push against that. You know, we have very loud disagreements and the children are there for it. And
I mean, it's just really that embedded like white hetero Judeo-Christian, like we are a united front in front of the
That's
children.
what I was gonna ask you. When y'all said who taught me that, who taught us that we have to be a united front? Like I remember all the times that it was like me and my husband, and when I was married, and then like his child's mother, it was like you and I have to be a united front against that.
Well,
like,
I mean, the mainstream parenting thinks that if your children don't see you as a united front, your power consolidated, and they won't respect you. And that's really around like hierarchical power and like punitive carceral posture, right? Just like the military is united front, the leadership is united front. We argue, and sometimes the kids will be on my side or on Mo's side, and it gets like grimy. And I'm like, really, Addison? I brought you in this world and you're gonna take Mo's side. And Addison goes, well, yeah, because what Mo's saying makes sense to me. And I'm all, okay,
you're giving your children the gift of autonomy by doing that.
Yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Because you can't expect your children to be revolutionaries who go and agitate against hierarchical power and the state whenever you have taught them that they have to be subjugated to you because you have more power than them. All you're doing
is subjugated one more time.
Subjugation.
Go ahead, please.
Squirt a little.
A lot of squirting this weekend.
But that's what the state teaches us. That's what white Judeo-Christianity teaches us. And so, I mean, the other day I had like a really hard night and I was like, I just take care of everyone and no one takes care of me. Fuck you, Mo. And Zara came into the laundry room and was like, Mommy, why are you sleeping on the floor of the laundry room? And I was like, because no one loves me, right? And I just acted how I was gonna act. And I had the conversation later about what was coming up for me and why I actually hurt myself and my hips more by like acting out that way. But the kids see that shit and it helps them be like, their friends like, oh, my parents never fight. And then they got a divorce. And Addison was like, oh, they were fighting.
And it's like a shock to everyone. Whereas like you know, God forbid, like if y'all were to have like this like sordid history of fighting or whatever, the kids would then understand. I was tired of seeing that shit. Like, I mean, you know, like, and it may not just be that, it may just be like, I think of my mother passed away the same week that my ex-husband's grandmother passed away, the same week, like, you know. And so like as soon as I got my mother laid to rest, like, you know, you did all this stuff and then you got her buried, we had to come to the hospital to like see his grandmother's last rites, and like his grandmother essentially raised him. So it was like a lot of trauma. And I think that I was so busy dealing with my mom that I never had the time to stop and like handle my own emotions. So when I saw his grandmother like dying, and it was like the same thing all over again. My mom was in the hospital, his grandmother was in the hospital. It was the same thing all over again. I think I went home one day and the girls were there, his two youngest daughters were there. And I just was like, like, you know, like everything came out, which it naturally should. I was experiencing grief, like, you know, and they called their dad and he was like, you can't act like that in front of my fucking kids, like, you know. And I'll never forget that, like, you know, I'll never forget feeling like I had to always be on and performing for someone, like, you know what I'm saying, in the midst of my own trauma. So I appreciate you saying that conflict is necessary. Grief is necessary. I think like experiencing emotions with your children. How can your children define their own emotions if it's like, that's not what we do. We don't cry. What are you crying for? Like we don't do, you know, I feel like this conversation was on par for the course. And I appreciate both of y'all so much, so much.
Well, I'm glad that you are trending toward relationships where you can show up as your full self, because I think that is the definition of intimacy, right? Enough space for us to show up as our full selves without anyone trying to modify us or police us or regulate us.
Thank you. The last question I have is for all of my guests, because I'm a complicated fucking bitch. Jasmine, you know this about me. You know, shut up. Okay. You don't have to agree on the internet. Okay. I'm a very complicated person and I like to ask two-pronged questions. So my question is, what, if anything, are you surprised that I didn't ask you about? Or is there something you wanted to speak about? And the second question is, who would you like to see on the show?
Anything surprised?
Mo is giving that look like, don't you want to talk to this bitch about the thing that she said she didn't want to talk to you about? Okay, great.
I'm like, I can't think. We covered all of.
We covered so much.
Yeah.
We did do a great job. An hour and 15 minutes, 35 minutes on the phone.
Who would I like?
Because we were actually on time. I got around, this is like 3 degrees of light skin right here. And I got on the phone with y'all and I was like, we're going to be on time.
I don't think you like failed to ask the hard questions. That's good stuff. Who would I like to see on the show though?
I'm laughing because we used to have a lot of people that you would recommend, and that list has dwindled.
It's gone down.
Like, let me unroll the scroll.
Do you know Jim from You're Doing Great? They're a TikTok influencer.
No, I don't even know how to do TikTok. Wait.
Yeah. I don't.
TikTok?
Yeah. I would love to see you have a conversation with them. They're fantastic.
Can you text me their name?
Yeah, totally.
Thank you.
Okay. I mean, only if you're willing to give us the contacts of some of the folks that have been on your show. We want to have them on the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. How come the fuck, like, I just asked you a question about, like, is there anything we haven't talked about or you're surprised? And on the top of my tongue, I was like, I totally want to talk about your podcast. What the fuck have y'all been talking about for 2 years?
We've been talking about habits of white supremacy. We've been talking about abolitionist parenting.
Yes.
We're talking about codependency and navigating being a parent as an addict.
Can you send me that link about codependency?
Yeah, we can. We've had lots of incredible guests that are national organizers that are in alignment with our politics, like Monifa Bandele, who is a Panther Cub and talks about community.
Is she related to Aisha Bandele?
they're I think, I don't know if they're biologically related, but I know that they're friends and connected
Okay.
in the same network.
We've also had Danielle Slaughter from Mama Demics.
I've been trying to get Danielle on the show. She's playing games all day, but it's okay. I understand.
She's not gonna do it. She barely, like, she's godmother to our
No,
children.
I understand she's antisocial. I get it. She's like, I like y'all, but only if I have to type to y'all. That's it. Like, I get it. I understand.
But yeah, we have the podcast and we do lots. So we talk about cutting off from family members and why you absolutely should, and we promote it.
We do.
Can you post your podcast link in the comments? Because I really want people to be able to subscribe and to see like previous episodes, which I think are super important.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody follows us on Instagram, there's a link in our bio. When you click on that, it'll pull up the link. Like, it'll say Apple Podcast. You could just push that and it'll take you to
I'm
our-
gonna steal that from you because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I have a podcast. Y'all are episode.
Tell you how to do it.
Yeah, if you need help at all.
Sorry, I don't want to say steal. I want to say liberate. Y'all are episode number 41.
Okay.
I've done 41 episodes since April 9th.
You're killing
That's
it.
a lot.
But why have you never tried to come and be on our podcast though?
Because you never invited me.
Actually,
No, fuck you, Mo. I'm gonna tell you right now how I
No,
fucking feel about it. Wow. I'm gonna tell you right now how I feel about it. So first of all, I got titillated enough to even reach out to the both of you fucktards. And I was literally like, at the end of the day, what I want to do is do an anthology on fucking a radical ass parenting. I see you, myself, Shamel Bell. I see Risha Tara. I like named all these dope ass fucking amazing radical parents. And I was like, we're going to do an anthology. We're going to publish a book. Shamel works at Dartmouth. And y'all were like, we're not interested by Didi Delgado and their antics, and we hate it here. Like, I mean, that's what it came down to.
Fucking
never
said
said
that.
I did though. I did reach out to you and I was like, hey, will you be on a guest episode? And I think you said yes. And then I went into a very deep depressive episode and
Too.
contacting anything and posting anything on Parenting is Political because I was like just trying to stay alive. So I dropped the ball on that, but we should definitely have you on our podcast.
And that was the same summer that I failed at killing myself. So
Yeah,
it got complicated.
Let's have a deep conversation.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about our
Now that
2018, shall we?
We're a little bit better and not in a depressive cycle. Let's see what we can get done before the next one hits.
I'm all for this. I appreciate y'all so much. I'm never going to mix a margarita and a cosmopolitan mixed beverage ever again.
But hey,
shout out to, go ahead.
But why do you know that? Because you tried it, right?
Fam, I'm not talking to you about my trials and tribulations, okay? I just want to thank Keith because Keith really gave a fuck about my mental health this week and sent me a box. There's like 3 bottles of this kind of liqueur and then like 6 bottles of wine, and he didn't have to do that. And it's the only white person I think I've fucked in the past 2 years. So thank you. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate you.
Keith
All
also sent me alcohol. I'm not gonna fuck them.
Keith, please send Jasmine alcohol. I mean, what else are you doing with your time right now? Nothing. So there's that. And I appreciate y'all. I hope y'all have a good night. And this has been another episode number 41 of The Full Set.
I love you.
I love you too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.